Okay, our candle's still going. I don't know what happened. The live just ended. I promise I didn't touch anything. The reason it takes me so long to get back is because I have to post the live. I have to add them as collaborators because it will just disappear. I don't want to just trash it. So we'll try to get everybody back. And I see Kamal there. Sorry guys, I still don't. Though, which is maybe it was, well, no, it's on my page. Anyway, so hopefully we can get Kamal back at least. Hopefully both. You can't hear me? Okay, hold on. Jump back in. Can you hear me? No? Nothing? It's all the way up. Oh, you can hear me now. Okay. Okay, there's Kamal. I don't know, and I don't know what happened to Denise. Craig can hear me.
Oh, there you are.
I don't know what happened. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Where's Denise?
I don't know. She's not back here, so I'm wondering if it was something with her connection.
Oh, she messaged and said that she tried to message you and she couldn't get hold of you. So that's a bit odd.
Oh, my do not disturb is on because it will flash down and people will call when I'm doing a live and it disrupts the live. But I don't see her like in the available when I hit these buttons down here. Normally she's just sitting right there at the top and I don't even see her in here. So, but we've had you for an hour anyway. So there's a couple things that I wanted to ask you about, and then I'll let you go. And if Denise pops back on, that'll be great. And if she doesn't, we had her for an hour, so we won't. I won't drag you for too much more. But so you said earlier that you thought there were conversations that were much more relevant than methodology.
Yeah.
What are like the top thing that comes to your mind, like that you really want to talk about and you always feel like we're circling around that? What is that?
For me, it's just knowing what the people actually understanding what their dogs are. You know, I think if we're talking about changing people's understanding of dogs, that was the point. As I said on the chat, was people just don't understand their dogs. They don't understand their dogs need on a daily basis. They don't understand, that when their dog could be behaving in a certain way, it could be pain. So let's be proactive about its, well-being. It's like my dog's had a chiropractor here today, as a proactive measure on my part to try and make sure that they're okay. Just simple things like that. And you think, how many people that aren't in this particular world would just assume that would consider something as simple as going, oh, my dog is behaving strangely, he's being a bit grumpy and reactive and volatile. Oh, maybe it could be, a physical thing going on, or the importance of exercising their dogs in ways that aren't just a ball launcher over the park, doing enrichment walks with them and just simple things like that. And I think, God, if we had more conversations along those lines, what a different world we would live in with dogs, really, And my feeling on, about the use of the same methodologies where there's, which is the one that's always controversial, is about aversives. That's in response to a build-up of factors. The dog hasn't been educated, it hasn't had its needs met, the owner's probably the mismatch between the dog and the owner, and so forth and so forth. And then the owner needs a quick fix because the problem has now become either a bigger problem or a societal problem, or there's a consequence, So now they think to themselves, okay, the choice is now to, use a resolution that they believe is going to stop the problem that. And you think, oh, what a missed opportunity, because if you'd done the 20 steps before, you wouldn't have the problem that you do now, really. But those, to me, are the conversations that we should be having, as opposed to, whether somebody, and obviously I have my opinion on the use of tools and whether I think they're correct or not, whether, of course I do. And what I do, I would be disingenuous to say I don't have an opinion. But for me, there's bigger conversations, because those things are almost, oh, Denise is with us.
Oh, she's back. I don't see her in here, though. Let me see if I can. There she is. Now she's back. We got her back. I don't know. I don't know. Was it your Wi-Fi?
I don't know, because I sent you a note saying, hey, bring me back, and I didn't hear from you, and I was able to chat with Kamal.
I couldn't
But it
see
was
you at
5
all.
o'clock. Do you think it's possible Instagram, because this happened to us like a week or two ago, do you think they might be having an issue at the 1 hour mark?
Oh, I didn't even notice. It did happen to us before. Like once you've done an hour, it just cuts up. Yeah, because my hands were not anywhere near it.
Oh, weird.
And I know nobody else was. I thought last time maybe somebody accidentally hit something, but I was like, well, it's my live. I'm the only one that can end it.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I think that there's probably something to that.
Anyway, your sound is better now too, Kamal. I was having a hard time hearing you before.
Okay, cool. I've come off the headphones, so hopefully this will work.
Yeah, it's good. We were just talking about, he said that there's conversations that he finds would be much more important than methodology. And he explained that a little bit. And then he was going to say something about, I think you were going to say something about the conversation around aversives and how you do have your own opinions, but ...
Yeah, so I do have my own opinions about the use of aversives, obviously, as you know, especially in what I do and what I, stand for. But as I said, I think they're sort of a secondary question. If people understood their dogs better and understood things like basic body language and, had an understanding of their breed-specific needs, really, what a Belgian is going to need very different to a Borzoi, and a Borzoi versus a Bulldog, and understanding, and just, I suppose, having more awareness of, and like so many clients that I deal with, when Denise was asking before we broke, was how many, what's the percentage? I would say online versus in person is probably about 50-50. And the majority of my in-person work is, I do obviously sports training, but a massive percentage is behavioral cases with people's dogs that, have various issues. And when you go over that dog's daily routine, you know what is a constant conversation is the dog just isn't having enough done in its day. Not because the people don't love them and they don't care for them, that is abundantly clear, but it's more the fact that the dog basically is power napping all day, and then when the people get around for work or the dog, they take the dog out on the weekend, which is the only time they have available, all hell breaks loose. And you think, God, if you just understood the need to be a little bit more, I suppose, proactive in your dog's general welfare, you would have a totally different experience for this dog, and you probably wouldn't need the likes of me to come and help you. Which and we in certainly in what I do, in certainly behavioural cases, people would have tried everything, and I'm not saying I always, I'm humble enough to say, well, I might not have the solution, but they've done the whole spectrum of things in desperation. And the most obvious thing that they miss is actually this has nothing to do about stopping the dog chasing the cars. This is a dog that needs an outlet for that behavior, and can we find something that's healthy, and can we build your confidence up, can we work on your relationship and your mindset to help this dog? So I think that's a huge part of the missing conversation. And something that I would certainly, when it comes to behavioral challenges, that would be so interesting to really look into, is the impact on the human's mental health and well-being on their dog's behavior. That would be such a great thing to actually, if we think of all the studies that we look into and all the resources that are working out, or does my dog respond to an e-collar or not, you think, God, what we should be asking is the fact that people struggle with mental health and there's dogs with behavioral problems. Surely there must be some connection there, and how can we help both ends of the discussion to be healthier? That's what if we had people that were more aware of their impact on their dog's behavior and their dog's behavior on their mental health, and having those conversations, that would be far more, for me, and research and resources put into it, we would be in such a better place, but that's just my little thing that I feel quite strongly about. Like when I did a television program over here, which my role in it, we were allocated two trainers per dog, or problem dog, and I was specifically the trainer that was allocated to work with the people, and the other trainer was allocated to work with the dog. And it was those conversations, when you unpack them, it had very little to do with sit down and stand and like who cares whether the dog, you know, that's totally irrelevant. It was there's a disconnect in their relationship with that dog, and the disconnect was because of their person's past trauma or the experience they had in another you know, owning another dog that they brought into this relationship, or you know, the sadness and that of losing another dog and they tried to fill the void, all the things that, you know, can happen. Was that a little person just shot?
That was Milo, yeah.
I'm assuming he lives with you.
Yeah, my youngest son, yeah. Yeah,
He's
all
like
my
a cape.
kids.
It'd be far more dramatic if he had a Superman cape and just ran to the background.
In his mind, I think that he does. Come on. I think that he does. Well, that was a great answer to my question. That was definitely some of the things that I think about. You know, my kind of the pervasive thought in my head during those conversations like that about tools and aversives and all those things are kind of like, man, I feel like this is obvious. Like, can we talk about something maybe that's more, you know, critical to actually the whole process of change here than this one little isolated thing? So I tend to be kind of with you on that. And I know Denise as well, that there are definitely so many more things that we could be talking about. And you hit the nail on the head. The fact that obedience is not going to solve behavioral problems any more than shipping your kid off to a military school and not dealing with their emotional problems is going to help them. You know, it might make them physically do the things that they're supposed to do, but it also could be creating a juggernaut of an anxious, angry being, you know.
The one thing somebody asked me about this, and we had a conversation recently. The one thing I think obedience does do is it gives you a foundation of behaviors that will be useful. So your dog wants to bark at the mailman, you have it touch your hand. That's a trained behavior, right? So I can see where having some basic obedience skills can be part of a useful strategy for solving problems. Like if you don't have a recall away from the fence, right? I see that. And I also think that the time spent learning how to train your dog, the quality of the interactions, the really paying attention, that has value. Definitely. But the actual, like, is teaching your dog to sit going to get rid of its aggression?
Yeah.
No, it's not. And I hope people kind of grasp the difference, because I do think that there are different kinds of trainers, and there are some trainers who are just really, really good at dog sports, and there's some who are really good at behavior and some who are really good at basic obedience. And I don't think it's a better or worse. It's just different. It's a different set of skill sets. And making sure people are getting to what they actually want. Like I've said many times, I'm really not a pet dog trainer. I mean, I think I kind of know, like, theoretically all this stuff, but I had never spent months, you know, going into people's homes. I've never done that. I've done very little of that. And so could I learn it? Yeah, but it would be awkward. Like for me right now, if somebody says, well, this person's having a problem with their dog jumping on the guests and also go to their house, I would be like, you know. But if somebody says this person needs help healing, I mean, honest to God, I think I could do it with my eyes closed and my hands tied behind my back. I mean, I could just know. And I don't have any emotional anything. It just, and so that is a good, like, barometer for me of the fact that I do not share the skill set of a pet dog trainer. They have more skills than I do. They have a way of going into the home with a plan and a conversation, and probably a lot more techniques that will work for a family than I have. And I just get people to the right people, and that's really, really important.
But then I think that one of the other, sorry, Denise, interjecting, but one of the other things that, again, our conversation is bigger than aversives, is to get to have more dialogue between, because at the moment, if you look at like sports trainers versus pet dog trainers, there's almost like never the twine shall meet, and you think there should be more crossover in conversation, like, because we can all learn from the opposing or different perspectives, you know, like using play as a medium, using play as a reinforcer to overcome your dog's confidence issue or behavioral challenge is a lost art. People just don't do it. They use a lot of food, but you think, why don't you use a toy? Like there's like you've got a dog that clearly is lacking focus, is motion driven. Well, let's use the toy as a reinforcer as opposed to just, you know, sprinkling food on the floor. In the same vein, sports people, they have a gross misunderstanding of arousal versus drive. And you think, actually, you have more understanding of behavior and the fact that your dog isn't excited and wanting to play the game, is actually just really confused and stressed and frantic. And we need to shift. So if there was more, you know, open dialogue between the two worlds, I think, again, that there'd be more benefit for all of us, really, dog sport people. But we all get into this like methodology conversation, which, you know, it's been the ironic thing about the methodology conversation. The methodology conversation has been in existence since I've been training dogs, which is well over 30 years. We were talking about the pros and cons about it was check chains and, you know, flat collars at that point, and it's just evolved really in terms of pinch collars, e-collars. You kind of go, it's the same conversation. There's always been divides. It's just human nature. So for me, I think rather than trying to say, which is, you know, makes me, I mean, I think, again, you know, Denise is admirable because she, you know, she keeps on trying to have these dialogues. I admire your tenacity about that. For me, I just think, I don't know, I have patience for it, being honest, because I just think, you know, do your thing. If you like what I do, I'm happy to have a conversation. Here's certain things that I don't do. If you don't agree with that, that's all good. But hey, you know what? Let's have discussions about, you know, getting people to understand they need to walk their dogs and stimulate their dogs and, you know, get their dogs looked at physically and all the things which I think would negate the conversation about, you know, what button do I press on this remote control, you know? But yeah.
There is so much, if we didn't have so much animosity, all I can see is how much we could grow. And people, I don't have anything to learn from those shock jocks. Well, actually you do. Like I was reading something today that was just kind of making me think about, normally, like let's say you went to a dentist and they were going to compare 3 possibilities, like about your teeth. You would hope they knew about all 3 possibilities. Like I want somebody who's educated, even if they feel strongly that they like 1 and 2, I still don't want them to know about 3. And I was kind of thinking, and I'll speak for myself, I probably have much better understanding of current use of e-collars than most people, simply because I'm listening to what people are talking about. Now, I don't have the details, but I am a dog trainer. So if I wanted to, I could pick it up fast if this was my interest. But I do try to have a basic understanding. I've watched some videos because people keep talking low-level stimulation, I probably should have better understanding. I am a dog trainer. I should be an expert, whether I choose to use it or not. I should actually be an expert on every possible method. It doesn't mean I have to use them or like them. But to talk against something that you actually don't understand is weird. Like to talk at length about how, you know, you're going to have fallout and shut down dogs when you have
no idea that that's actually true, and you're not around dogs that are on e-collars and having this. So watching hunting and being in the hunting world versus just the pet world and pet behavior is incredible for me, because they all know I'm a dog trainer. I don't think they give a shit. You know, they don't care. Like they're happy that I like dogs and that I'm there. But it just doesn't come up in conversation in that way. And I don't say anything about anything that they're doing unless I saw a man outright physically harming a dog or a horse to where I would step in with my body. That's the way they're doing it. And I have to say that there are so many things. There's a lot of people I want to take out on those trials with me that are dog trainers, because I'm like, I understand what you're saying about the e-collars and about this and that, and this person's abusive and that person's abusive and that. I don't think that dog would ever be allowed to be its full, complete self in your hands, because I don't think it would be safe for it to go and do that, because you're not willing to, you know, use these tools or to do this, and it's not something that I do or that I use, but I'm watching people use them with incredible skill and not very often. And I know they put a lot of work and effort and repetition and passion into what they're doing. So I just don't say anything and I just listen. I just listen and I watch, and there are always trainers that stick out to me, always. And they're always typically really methodical, and they're generally very quiet, and they're just out there working and paying attention to what's going on. But you can't use collars in trialing. You can't use the Jeep. You can't use any e-collars at all. And they have a GPS collar on, but the judge has to hold it. So you just really don't, so we'll see who's got their shit together, and you get out there and you
On that
realize that
note,
these dogs are really happy, and that the collars are effective enough that during trialing they still have it in their mind that they need to listen and they need to pay attention. It's just a different world, and I think because it's so different, there's not a lot of crossover. And when there is crossover, I'm sure that person feels as though they need to say something instead of just watching and just being, observant about what's going on and seeing what they could take.
Talking about, sorry, interrupting you, but
No,
two things that you said that sprung to mind was when I go and teach abroad, I get, but the people that hire me are what you call balanced trainers. But when they hire me specifically because they've got an open-minded, they're interested in different takes, and they obviously have me for that reason. And they're very courteous, and they brief everybody. They can't have their tools on, etc., etc. So all is well. But what the conversations that we have over dinner, driving to places, is absolutely gold, because it is the dialogue where we will openly, without any animosity, without anybody trying to win the conversation. It's just a conversation in which we go, oh, this is what I do in this situation because of this, and this is what we do. And it's, honest to God, it's so powerful to have those sort of interactions. And when you said about skill set, etc. So years ago, God, probably, I don't know, 12, maybe probably like 10, way before I was a professional dog trainer. A very good friend of mine, he's an e-collar, he uses an e-collars on his dogs. He does work in Nigerian Shepherds, he does IGP with them and competes, he's been internationals, etc. And he was having a knee operation. So he asked me to go and exercise and run his dogs and look after them whilst he was incapacitated. And he asked me, he said, look, you have to he had a dog that he imported from Germany that was really, really sharp. So he said, you have to have an e-collar on this dog, just please, for a safety measure. I know your opinion on it, but it's my dog. He asked me, I had to run it at his property, and he had these militant ways of how I got it in and out of the kennel. If it had a toy, don't go head on with it, blah, blah, blah. So I respected it. The dog never put foot on. I didn't have to ever, the dog had a collar. It didn't have any reason to, because it was absolutely militantly. As long as you did all the things, this dog was great. So obviously I expressed that, I'm not really comfortable, but it's your dog. I will go with it. I'm, doing you this favor because of whatever. And what he did was, he actually paid for me to go on an e-collar seminar by the e-collar person in the world. And I said, I was like, well, if you're going to pay for it, I will go with an open, because he was very much like, you should really understand these, there is merit in it, etc. So I went on this seminar, and it was absolutely fascinating, because obviously everybody on the seminar had the intention they thought they were going to go be told how to use an e-collar and etc. And essentially what this person said was, none of your dogs should be having an e-collar on, because none of them are trained well enough in the basic skills to warrant having to use an e-collar. And he talked about how he lures his dogs initially, and then he uses lead pressure. He then pairs the lead pressure with the e-collar, and then he fades he talked about how he uses it to increase speed or however he framed it. But he went through this process, which was so systematic and, like you said, so diligent in its thinking, and he said basically to everybody, he said it really publicly, and if you knew the person, he's not afraid to say his opinion. He was like, basically, he literally said, none of your dogs should have an e-collar. They're all shit trained or something, words to that effect. Literally that blunt to everybody. And you could see everybody recoiling in their seats going, oh, you know, these were like national team dogs, yada, yada, yada. And he absolutely slated them all to the ground, saying none of your dogs are trained well enough and none of you have decent enough handling skills to warrant you putting a collar on it. And he absolutely didn't hold back at all. And I was a bit like, oh, this was not quite what I was expecting, because he was like, there's no point you putting on this. Your dog can't sit in front of you. It doesn't know the cue. So why on earth would you then put this on it? And it just got me, whilst it really did was it changed the way in which I viewed the people that used them, if that makes sense. It was nothing. I still hold my stance on whether my use of them and whether I feel they should, but I suppose I thought that everybody that used them, they were the bogeyman, they were the antichrist, they were like these villainous people that hated dogs. And I was like, oh, this is not anything of what I was expecting to hear on this seminar. So it was quite a profound moment for me, really, to and hence why, again, come back to the original conversation of why I think I don't get involved with drama, because until I want to see you in the space, I want to have a dialogue with you, I want to meet you as a human being, because there might be a totally different take on it, and you might actually I might have some preconceived judgments that I might be placing, because that's absolutely, I went in there and I was very much like, he really had to say, like, come on, look, come with me, I will pay for you. I was like, no. I was like, okay, fine, whatever, dragging my heels, going like arms folded, this is going to be a load, I'm not going to stand by, I'm ready to walk at any given point, I'm not going to sit here and watch dogs being abused all day. Jesus Christ, talk about not the experience I had at all. It was so humbling for this guy. He went, none of you should have these on, none of your dogs are trained well enough, they can't, and he just absolutely crucified everybody. So again, I suppose we could all do with that little bit of that life lesson, really, you know?
Yeah, so much in there. I was, isn't that true for all of us, though, on the spectrum of training? Like, often I will have, let's say, an advanced healing class, and I'm not that blunt, I'm not like that guy, but frankly, it's not unusual in my advanced healing class. I'm looking around going, nobody is advanced healing. You don't even have the foundation. You don't have the basics. That is typical, partly because what I consider advanced and what somebody else might consider advanced, we're not starting from the same mental model. I've had similar experiences. I have observed people using tools I don't choose to use in a very sophisticated way. I'm watching their dog. I see nothing in the dog that makes me go, this is horrible. The thing that I always come back to, like when we talk about things like legislation, is what is best case scenario? What is typical? What is worst case scenario? I consider all of those. And then I ask myself, how many people do I think are in the best case scenario? How many do I think are in typical? And how many is worst case? And that really largely drives my thoughts on this matter. Because if best case scenario is so rare as to not be worth talking about, and if worst case scenario is so abusive that I don't want to see any dog subjected to that, that drives where I get to. Not because I think it has to be that way. Like Sarah Brisky and I were on a podcast together, and we were kind of talking about this. The tendency of all of us is to look at the worst case scenario of people who do differently than us.
Yeah.
So the worst case scenario of a positive reinforcement trainer is somebody who frankly can't accomplish anything except feeding a dog. They haven't got a clue, and they do no good. Maybe they don't do harm, except the person doesn't progress, but they don't help. So that is what balance trainers do. They look at our worst case scenario, and then they're out there. They're totally out there, right? And then what do? We look at the worst case scenario of the balanced community, and they're absolutely out there too. And so I kind of feel like, it's really complicated, and people don't want to look at that complexity. They want it to be simple. They want it to be, all those stupid food trainers are euthanizing dogs and can't handle shit. And the other side is, all those e-collar trainers are masochists who should die, or whatever it is we're saying these days. And I'm like, can we hang out in the middle and talk about best case scenario, worst case scenario, typical use? Because I think that's a healthier driver of decision making, right? And my personal opinion is there's still way too much poor quality use of tools that verges on abusive, and that it's almost standard. Like, I'm not going to say typical, but it's common enough that I would say a whole lot of people in a lot of circles are not looking twice. And to me, that's problematic. when dogs are vocalizing, when, you know, that kind of stuff. Like when that happens, it should be so unusual that everybody goes, what just happened? Like if a dog in my house screams, believe me, we all run, right? We all go to see why. I would expect that level of, and so I absolutely think that there are situations when dogs' quality of life improves under the right circumstances, with the right trainer, with the right tool, under, you know, all these things. But these conversations, like you said, Kamal, in person, these conversations are not a problem to have. We have them all the time, as long as everybody stays calm, and they do.
Yeah.
It's online that the lowest common denominators, emotional reactors, ruin the possibilities of exploring. And because we don't explore, we don't learn. Because we don't learn, everybody stagnates. We don't become better positive reinforcement trainers. They don't become better balance trainers, because the basis of what you were just telling me is too many of those people who wanted to learn how to use an e-collar hadn't actually learned how to use positive reinforcement correctly. So that's what that trainer was saying. The base has to be excellence in positive reinforcement. It has to be. And then you can layer it on. And where I'm probably weak is, well, exactly how are you layering it on? Like I've just chosen not to go in that direction because I don't really need it. I don't teach it. I don't really, but if we're really going to say we're going to weigh out the merits of different methods, how can we not have that information? I mean, it's just odd. And then people say, oh, I have nothing to learn from those people. But right there, that is kind of an expression of the ignorance. Like how I used an e-collar, whatever it was, 30, 40 years ago now, turned it on high, let the dog go. Dog chased a rabbit. Oh, he learned. It was ugly and it was inappropriate and it didn't have to be like that. And so I know what a person will do who has no training if you hand it to them, because I did it. And I'm not an unusually sadistic and sick person, maybe a little, but I don't think I'm like off the chart. But yeah, it's worth it to those who are listening to this, depending on which side of the fence you're on. If you have a friend who's on the other side of the fence, sit down and have this conversation. And I think, you know, really talk about where are you coming from? Do you really understand what good trainers are doing? Do you really understand what's a typical trainer? Because I would say that in person, balanced trainers, and I agree that there's a lot of unfortunate training going on both sides in the average pet trainer. Too many trainers are saying, I can only name 5 trainers in the area I live in that I would refer to. That's problematic on their own, of their own type, right? Like it's not even, and I'm like, wow, I mean, that's just, we're losing so much by not having a range of understanding. Take your range of understanding. And as you did, Kamal, you took the class, you learned the things. You didn't actually change your choices because you feel good about your choices and you're getting from here to there.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to believe that if I went to an e-collar class, I would run out and buy one, because I don't really need one. I'm very comfortable with where I am with my dogs and what I'm accomplishing. And those few things I can't do because I don't think my dog has a training, they're not harming anybody's quality of life. But I would benefit from by learning it. There's this something inside of me that makes me not want to go. And I don't even know what it is. Maybe I should sit with it for a bit, but somehow there's a side of me that does not want to spend my day there. Yeah, I don't know how to explain that. It's just in there. But I don't have a problem spending. I was at a training today where several dogs were wearing e-collars and it didn't bother me. I don't know if they were using them or not, but there was nothing there that bothered me. But going to a class to learn to use them bothers me somehow. You know, I think it's a Denise problem though. It's not you know what I mean? We all have our things. But
Yeah. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was on mute. I was just going to read the comment, but say what you were going to say, Kamal.
No, it's just interesting to hear have these sort of conversations and have them in a way that for me it's about not having a specific agenda. And as you know, I think I've been open about my stance on versus tools. As I said, I'm fortunate that I can have conversations with people that train differently with me. Openly, they you know, I've had lessons with people, they've come to me for help on different things, they're open about what they do, which helps move everything forward. And it's just a shame that when you put the internet into it and social media, then the whole energy changes and it becomes far more combative. And as I said, I think that, like Denise said, it's the whole. We always use the extreme ends. You use the poorest example of one approach to combat the best example of another, and vice versa. And I just think it's such a short-sighted way of discussing. And as I said, if we had more conversations where we were willing to listen and not necessarily, you don't have to agree. That's the thing. You just, because you're listening to something doesn't mean that you're going, well, that's it. You're just allowing them space to give their, to present their argument. And then you can push back, or you can just present yours. That's how, or your side of the conversation. And that's how, you might conclude it by going, yeah, great conversation. And we agree to disagree, and we go our separate ways, or we whatever, break bread or whatever. But I just think that it becomes so emotive, and that it becomes, we lose the greater good, which is to again, to lift us all up. Is for me is the end goal.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think that's definitely what we need more of, is just getting back to the spirit of healthy debate, healthy conversation, realizing that we don't all have to agree. You can listen to the words of another person and not be, a spell will not be cast on you. It's just information. And
but I think because, like, for example,
something.
it's that whole thing of repercussions and cancel culture.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the conversation that we had on the chat, there was not for you and I, we got off it, out of it, not that there was anything to get out of, but we didn't seem to have any backlash. But Michael, right. Jesus H Christ, it was like a whole, like, and that's why people are reluctant to have those open dialogues and to be transparent and to give their real genuine views, because of the backlash of, how's it going to affect my social media? Is it going to affect anything? Wow, that's really, have we gone to that place? But I think that's, as I said, that's why I suppose I have the take on social media that I do. It's like, and why I suppose, actually interesting now I'm really thinking about it, probably why I keep the ratio of online work versus in-person work a balance, because I don't want to ever feel vulnerable to either entity. Or so, if I make a misstep and I get cancelled on social media and my online entity plummets, that's okay. I'll just go back to my day job. I'll just, I don't want to ever feel in the position, and that was a lesson I learned when I was in the police, actually, of being vulnerable to the power and influence of others. When I was in law enforcement, you're a number, so they can put you where they want, they can move you around. But in what I do now, I do have a level of influence over my own, my work, etc. By hopefully being able to be honest. And if I get cancelled on social media or whatever, oh well, okay, I'll just go and do what I used to do, go to the vets and get them to do it the old school way. So I like that balance, because I think if you place so much emphasis on creating your work and your business and your self-worth from what is provided on social media, it leaves you very vulnerable.
It does. Very, very vulnerable. It really does. I like to remind myself all the time. Well, when people ask me, I'm like, that's not, I said something to somebody today about finishing up a project. And then later I said, okay, I'm going back to work. And they said, oh, I thought you were done with work. I was like, no, I have an actual job. And they were like, oh, what is it? I train dogs. I'm a dog trainer. That's my actual job. Like, all this other stuff is just the fluff around it. But there's 22 people I need to talk to, like every single day. So I think that's a good little reminder, is how many eggs are in one basket? And if you dropped that basket, would everything crumble?
Another thing just to throw out there, like, when you're in the middle of it, it sucks when you're in a social media war.
Ugh.
But when you're done with it, you actually, if you pay attention, will discover that you have a better following. Because every time you go through a cleanse, what basically happens is they take themselves out.
Yeah.
Like, in the process, they call it canceling, but lots of people, if you are genuine, if you're not just trying, the problem is when you try to please everyone, what happens is when you screw up, you can't please everyone. Then they're disappointed and upset because they thought you were someone you're not. There's a lot to be said for figuring out who you are and being that person, because it's a little hard to say, I thought you were someone else. I was like, well, I don't know. I'm pretty open about who I am. I mean, I change my ways over time, but basically, you better figure out who you are, because you can't please all the people, and then you're setting yourself up for a really hard fall, I think. Something Kamal said earlier, I just want to say to those who are listening who might not know this. If you go in a room and you talk to 20 people and they're all dog trainers and you're having dinner and their dogs are not there, there is zero chance that you can figure out who the balance trainers are and who the positive reinforcement trainers are based on how nice, sadistic, whatever it is you think the individuals are. There is zero relationship. The nicest human beings on the planet can be, in my opinion, unreasonably hard on their dogs. And some of the nastiest human beings can be incredibly kind and talented with dogs. They are not mutually exclusive, but it's just, so this idea that people who use tools must be wacko, crazy, mean-ass people, and people who use food only must be weak and can't get a dog trained and all. No, it's just not like that. It's just people. People have made different choices for different reasons, and it's really incorrect to suggest anything else, even though I know social media kind of portrays it that way.
Yeah, it's just people and choices. That's a great tagline for the end of this. Well, Kamal, we're gonna let you go to bed. Is
2 in the morning. I forgot. I was gonna just keep going till 3. I forgot that we had restarted.
No, I appreciate the invite. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah.
You know, I'm privileged and honoured to be invited on, and you keep doing what you both do. You're both trailblazers. You lead from the front and you lead by example. So I have the utmost respect and admiration for both of you. So on that note, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Kamal. Good to see you, Jerry.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Oh, smile.
Oh, smile. We did it. All right.
All right. Bye.
See ya.